You are listening to Robert Fain's podcast.
Decades ago, the French philosopher and theologian Jacques Ellul diagnosed this exact shift. He argued that in modern technological society, images have become the daily nutrient of our sensory experience. And Ellul saw this not as some harmless tech upgrade, but as a severe threat to human freedom and truth. He famously called this phenomenon the humiliation of the word, arguing fiercely that the word is fundamentally superior to the image. To really understand our modern minds and Ellul's incredible blueprint here, we're going to explore this as an epic, dialectical battle between the word and the image. We'll quickly run through 1. Truth versus reality. 2. Freedom versus necessity. 3. Dialogue versus spectacle. 4. Time versus space. 5. The theological primacy. And finally, 6. Saving human freedom.
All right, on to our first battleground, truth versus reality.
Now, in everyday conversation, we kind of just use these words interchangeably, right? But Ellul redefines them with shocking precision. For him, truth isn't just about stating objective facts. It's actually a universe established by language that allows us to frame something totally different from the verifiable, concrete world. The word is the creator and the founder of truth. It's uniquely capable of conveying invisible things like spiritual experiences, moral imperatives, and the deepest, most complex feelings of a person. You literally cannot point a camera at truth. On the flip side, we have reality. Ellul defines reality strictly as the domain of the tangible, the quantitative, and the measurable. And here's the real kicker. Images belong exclusively to reality. Sure, they can show us appearances and they can show us outward behaviors, but they completely fail to convey the deep requirements of justice or profound spiritual truths. Think about it. You can take a photo of a judge sitting in a courtroom, that's verifiable reality, but it takes words to explain the invisible concept of justice. And this brilliantly illustrates the core of this first clash. On the left, we've got the word, belonging to the order of truth, giving us access to justice and spiritual experience. On the right, the image, belonging to the order of reality, locked entirely into the tangible and verifiable. Because our modern world is so obsessed with scientific measurement and technique, we've basically elevated reality over truth. We think seeing is believing, but Ellul warns us that images can never ever express ultimate truth.
Moving right along to round 2, freedom versus necessity.
So, the mediums we consume actually dictate our personal liberty. Think about reading a really challenging text. Because words can be a bit ambiguous and actually require interpretation, they leave what Ellul calls a margin of freedom for you. You have to actively decide what they mean and whether you even agree. But images, they belong to the realm of necessity and technique. They hit you with instant evidence that feels absolutely unquestionable. It bypasses your critical faculties entirely and forces passive participation. You just see a photograph and subconsciously accept it as objective proof. It eliminates your choice.
As Ellul beautifully puts it, language is a sign bearing witness to my freedom and calling the other person to freedom as well. Let's just pause and sit with that margin of freedom for a second. When I speak to you, I'm extending an invitation. Language requires your active, conscious engagement. It literally gives you the space to accept or reject it. For Ellul, the word is the absolute center of human freedom.
Next up, our third clash, dialogue versus spectacle. So the crucial point here is that the word is fundamentally dialogical. It's interpersonal. It's this living presence that requires a response from you. It demands an active, two-way relationship between humans. In total contrast, the modern proliferation of images turns you into a passive spectator. When you're watching a spectacle, you are locked into a rhythm you didn't choose, and it's paralyzing. You can't act or intervene in the reality you're seeing on a screen.
Bringing us to number 4, time versus space.
See, images belong to space. When you look at an image, boom, you get an all-inclusive totality in a single glance. It just hits you all at once, totally overwhelming you with instantaneous data. But words, well, words belong to time. A sentence has to unfold in a temporal sequence. You literally have to wait for the end of my sentence to understand the meaning, which trains your mind for slow, rational, step-by-step reasoning.
Because images give us that all-inclusive totality in a single glance, they push us toward a much more emotional, far less rational mode of thinking. I mean, why does this matter to you today? Just think about doom scrolling through an endless image feed on your phone. That spatial totality completely bypasses our logical faculties. Ellul warns that this constant visual bombardment breeds serious intellectual laziness and mutates us toward pure emotional reaction.
Now, let's look at the theological root of all this. Section 5. The theological primacy.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the profound biblical evidence Ellul pulls together to show that God explicitly rejected the image. God chose the Word as his unique means of revelation. Creation itself was accomplished through the simple word. God said, "Let there be light." There was no massive, blinding visual explosion of power, just speech. The divine interacts with humanity through dialogue, not some visual spectacle. He even points out that when the Word literally became flesh in Jesus Christ, there was absolutely nothing about his physical, visual appearance that gave away his divinity. He didn't literally glow. He didn't walk around with a halo you could verify with your eyes. He could only be recognized through his words. The divine prioritized hearing over seeing, because hearing requires faith, while seeing demands absolute proof.
Finally, our last section, saving human freedom.
So, what does this all mean? For Ellul, saving the Word is synonymous with saving humanity's capacity for truth, meaning, and freedom. Resisting the humiliation of the Word isn't just some polite suggestion to go read more books instead of watching TV. It is a vital existential battle to save our very capacity to create meaning. If we lose the Word to the image, we lose our ability to reason, to dialogue, and to actually exist as free individuals in a technological society.